Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football presented by BKCW. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. And guys, we are 22 days away from kickoff, so you got to tell us who your favorite number 22 is. Tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, get those questions in. But I'm going to ask y'all, who's your favorite number 22?
22 right there. So here, historically for Texas, it would be Bobby Lane, right? But I was not around for Bobby Lane. My dad was, my grandfather. So I'm going to go with Selvin Young, right? Young man out of Jersey Village High School, competitive recruitment there, and a guy that I think has done well for himself. For those of you guys that don't know, Selvin lives in the Houston area, I believe now, and has done really, really well for himself. He's actually like the king of food trucks down in Houston. He retrofits trucks and makes them possible he sells the trucks actually themselves to other people. That's one of the things he does, and very happy for him. I saw him down at a Texas One Fund fundraiser in Houston a couple of years ago, and talked to him about that a little bit. So he's done well for himself. Again, another guy that has done well for himself after leaving the University of Texas as a player. So Bobby Lane, Selvin Young, those are my two. I'm sure there's somebody else that I'm just missing. And there are those of you out there that know who they are. Please tell us if you don't mind, because we love seeing the old names come across the chat line.
Yeah, funny Selvin Young story. Again, if I have to hit the cough button, man, my allergies are crushing me. I'm about to take the Manscaped 5.0 to my allergies. But if I hit the cough button, sorry. But Selvin Young, funny recruiting story, because I covered his recruitment. And what was funny to me about this one and it was telling of Mac Brown too. This is the one, for whatever reason, that got, and I just know this from being really close to the couple of people on the staff around Selvin Young's recruitment. This is the one that really got under Bob Stoops' skin, because Oklahoma had smashed Texas 63-14, then 14-3, right? And in Texas, and Bob Stoops had asserted domination, right, of the series, and he was just miffed that Selvin Young, because Oklahoma, I think, was on Selvin earlier too, was miffed that Selvin Young picked Texas and that Mac Brown won that recruitment. That is one, for whatever reason, that is one that got under Stoops' skin a little bit, because he was like, just kind of threw his hands up.
Miffed is not the appropriate word, Jerry.
Well,
pissed off.
But this is PG-13 until the Manscaped read.
Hey, by the way, 22 is one of the numbers that has been retired at the University of Texas now. So I think that was done. When was that done? Blake, you looked that up for us this morning. 2007, 2008? Is that accurate?
2008. They did Novus Lane and Vince Young in 2008, all three of those, with 6 total numbers retired. Number 60, Novus. Number 34, Ricky. Number 22, Lane. Number 20, Earl Campbell. Number 12, Colt. And last but not least, number 10, Vince Young.
Nice. That's a great list right there, isn't it? But no current number 22s on the team to talk about. We'll see where that goes. A lot of stuff happening across the 40 acres, even in Paris right now, with some Olympians going for gold again today. But let's start with practice yesterday, if you don't mind, guys. I had a chance to be at the media availability with Steve Sarkisian. He talked about a number of different factors, but really what dominated conversation of that press conference was Cedric Baxter and what the Longhorns might do with his loss. And I've got to be honest, this is where I got to be honest. This is where Steve Sarkisian is just pretty good at being straightforward with the media. He said, look, our game plan right now is to go in and look at the guys we've got, and then we're going to convene as a staff. And that means looking at Jarrett Gibson, looking at Christian Clark. They did that yesterday. They ran with the twos in team drills. Both of those guys did as a tandem. Look at those guys, look at them in the scrimmage, and then we're going to convene as a staff on Sunday and say, hey, let's look at the roster. Is there anybody that we could push to running back for a short period of time to see if they take? Right now, he's, in my opinion, he's waiting to see whether or not he thinks Gibson and Clark mentally are ready. And he thinks he probably needs both of them to be mentally ready. He can't just have one big back. He's got to have two.
Well, and to that point, Bobby, game hadn't been played yet. Another running back's going to get nicked up. It's going to happen. It's a 12-game physical season coming up for Texas. I mean, you're at Michigan, then you have an SEC schedule. This is going to be a more physical schedule for Texas than they're accustomed to playing. So other running backs are going to get nicked up. So both those freshmen, their world changed 3 days ago.
Yeah, it really did. And now it's like we asked him, is there anybody that you're projecting or thinking about already? He did not have a name. And that's when he said he's going to talk to his folks. I've heard some names behind the scenes. Somebody mentioned Jelani McDonald. He's not really a big back, though. I'm thinking more of guys that played a little bit of it in high school. Darian Gillette, Anthony Smith are both bigger guys that might have some ability there. Of course, Anthony Smith's only been in college for 6 months. So we'll see what happens in the next 24, 48 hours. The Longhorns have practice today. Sark said it was going to be a lighter practice. He felt like they went pretty hard on Thursday. On Saturday morning, 9:45, the Longhorns get after it. It will be their first practice or their first full scrimmage right now of the 2024 fall camp. A lot of news coming out of that for sure. I posted an article this morning on ontexasfootball.com. A lot of different pieces for you guys to look at. Billy Dale, number 22, on the 69 Longhorn National Champs team. Thanks, Jack. Billy Dale runs a nice Facebook page, by the way, these days, talking about the Longhorns that I look at every so often. So good to hear his name.
Well, guys, before we move on and talk about more news of the day, Bobby, first, can you tell folks out there about BKCW and escaping the insurance trap?
Yeah, absolutely. Today's show brought to you by the folks at BKCW Insurance. It's a business insurance company that focuses on getting you and your company out of the insurance trap where the agent is providing no value and you're stuck in the insurance trap. BKCW takes you out of that insurance trap by providing you with actual risk management consulting, not just price quoting. Operating out of its headquarters in Austin and owned by a UT grad, BKCW uses a 5-step process to identify your business's weak spots, design a plan, execute it, and monitor your situation throughout the year so that you don't get those last-minute rate increases. Therefore, you can effectively manage your company's costs and risks as well as employee benefits. BKCW has risk consultants that specialize in many different industries, from construction and transportation companies to nonprofits and school districts. You'll get matched up with someone who knows your risks and can help you escape that darn insurance trap. Get started with a free risk assessment at bkcw.com or send an email to info@bkcw.com to get started and get the support you deserve.
Now, I know you said a lot practice today, Bobby. Scrimmage, obviously, tomorrow morning. But, guys, what are some of the things that y'all are looking to hear about or storylines that people may need to pay attention to besides the obvious when it comes to tomorrow's scrimmage?
One of the things for me is Bobby mentioned it on an article on ontexasfootball.com this morning, was that Cole Hudson and Neto this isn't talk about rotation this year. I think I continue to hear Texas is going to play those guys this year. So I think that's one of the things is Texas is going to play 7 offensive linemen this year in games. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Staying on the offensive line, I've heard Texas is very happy with the freshmen, especially Daniel Cruz. Maybe he's taken a big step from the spring. Not that he's going to be counted on this year, but look, injuries happen. So he's a play away from being the number 2 guy at center, but he's got a very bright future from what I'm hearing. And then obviously this will be Jarrett Gibson and Christian Clark. This is a different deal for these guys now. So the scrimmage Saturday Sark knows Jarrett Gibson can run the football between the tackles. That's a known. He knows Christian Clark can make a violent jump cut, skip cut, and run the football effectively. It's everything else. And that's where the everything else is now going to be tested to see where these guys are truly at, because they weren't going to have to truly test them as this quick. They were more developing them and getting them prepared in case. The in case happened 3 days ago. Now they're accelerated. So this will be big for those guys Saturday to see which one of those two guys kind of makes the big jump with these new opportunities, because one of these guys is going to be a play away from being a number 2 guy. So I think that'll be interesting to see. Bobby, Colin Simmons, I think everything I think you're hearing and I'm hearing as well. Colin Simmons seems to really be coming on right now. Not that he didn't in the spring, but he was coming off a high ankle sprain late in his high school season that kind of carried over for him. But I hear he's really coming on right now. And coming on for him is, I mean, what does that mean statistically, guys? I don't know. I'm just hearing he's really coming on.
I'll just tell you that he looks like $1 million and then some. When you see him in pads, he's a different looking dude for a true freshman. I'll just put it that way. He literally is more filled out than you would expect, yet still has those long arms, Jerry. And his twitch is just different than everybody else. It's just different. Not sure how else to say that. He's got some moves in the pass rush game too. Look, what are they expecting? And what is Sark expecting from the scrimmage tomorrow? He talked a little bit about, seeing where his team was from, and not just on the whole, but individual players from a preparation, mental readiness perspective. Especially of the younger players. He knows kind of what to expect of Quinn Ewers. He knows what to expect of Jake Majors, et cetera, those kind of guys. But of the younger players, when the guys are off the field, right? The coaches are going to be off the field. They're not going to be right behind the huddle, telling them what to do. The coaches in this scrimmage will be off the field. He wants to see how these young players react, how they mesh. Are these young receivers ready to go? Is Ryan Wingo, when a coach isn't right behind him telling him what to do, going to be lined up in the right spot and motioning at the right time, et cetera? So he's really looking for mental prep and emotional and mental readiness for the young players. The second thing that he's really looking for, and this is where, Jerry, the playmaker discussion becomes. He's looking for playmakers and disruptors. Who does he need to move up from the 3rd unit or the 2nd unit or even the 4th, that all of a sudden when the lights go on, they start making plays? Trey Wisner was one of those guys last year. Hey, this guy may be a little bit better than we thought. And now he never really played until later in the year outside of special teams. But when the light bulb goes on, when the lights go on, where do those guys come out? So is that a Colin Simmons, who is working at 3rd team right now, by the way? He's not working 2nd team. He's working 3rd team. What about Javion Cole, the corner? Same situation. He is still working 3rd team. Javion Cole is. Jordan Washington, 3rd team. Spencer Shannon, who I mentioned in that article, Jerry, is having a quietly good camp as a inline blocking tight end.
That's his strength coming out of high school, as he develops on his frame.
And he is the only one of that group whose strength that is. I mean, it's not it's certainly not Amari Niblack or Juan Davis as an inline guy. And Gunnar Helm, that's not his, he's a well-rounded tight end. Right. He's not a block first tight end. And so I think there might be a spot there. I mean, they're going to look at those sorts of things in this practice, see if a Daniel Cruz is ready for 2nd string, right? I will say this. I've been told that Connor Robertson, the backup center, is having a very, very good camp, but Daniel Cruz is just really, really talented and really, really quick. I would not be surprised if Cruz doesn't ultimately I just think he's going to be too good not to work his way into a lineup next year somehow. That's how good he's looking at this point. It may not be at center, though, Jerry. I mean, they may have to find him a spot somewhere else because he's just looking that darn good. Little freaky, I guess, is the way to put it. Some other news or some other guys that I think you'll see whether or not they're in that group. Which of the freshman safeties push up into that one? I mean, is Phil Sami ready? Can he potentially go ahead of Jelani McDonald? What about Jordan Johnson-Rebel? There's a number of different pieces like that. And then also we already talked about, do they find somebody else on this football team that can be a bigger back that has the mental aptitude to handle being a big back on offense? So that will all play itself out over the next 24 to 48 hours.
Okay, well, there's obviously a lot of team stuff going on, but recruiting is churning along as well. Jerry, what's the latest when it comes to recruiting as we get a lot of recruiting questions coming in?
That's what I was going to do. I was just going to kind of answer some of these recruiting questions this morning that people have. Drew Lockhart asks, are we going to land Terry, Joseph, and French for Fasusi's going to Oklahoma? I mean, Texas is going to keep battling away on Fasusi there. We'll see. I mean, I think Terry, these are all national battles. I mean, these are real deal recruiting battles Texas is in. So Michael Terry, Texas, Nebraska, he likes Oregon. Oregon's too far from home, I think. Nebraska is doing, literally throwing all the kitchen sinks at it. I think that as long as the people in the circle prefer close to home, that's really good for Texas with Michael Terry. But we'll see what he does and when he announces something. That's kind of gone back and forth. Jonah Williams, I'll call him a little bit of a wild card, not the same level of a DJ Sanders, but a wild card because, look, he didn't take the official to Texas. And so there is a difference there in recruiting. But I'll say this. I'm going to say one thing I've always said about Jonah Williams' recruitment is his father was a star at Galveston ball, went to Houston. His oldest brother committed to Texas, I think ultimately signed with A&M in baseball before going to the draft. His middle brother is playing junior college baseball in Texas, I believe at Galveston College. They've all stayed in state. They've all stayed close to home. If Jonah goes to Oregon, he's a trailblazer in his family. But if he's going to play football and college and baseball, football and baseball in college, which is his plan currently, it's a lot of travel for a family in Galveston, Texas, in Galveston County, because that's Big Ten travel in two sports. So ultimately, will he go far from home? Family history suggests not, but things can change. Somebody can be a trailblazer. If he stays close to home, Texas A&M, LSU, I think they're all right there battling, and I think it's going to be a battle. I didn't get the impression when I was at Galveston Monday that a decision had been made. I just think there were so many things. That decision to graduate from high school in December, that was news that day that On Texas Football was lucky enough to break just by being down there at Galveston and being there. That it'll be interesting. I think there's going to be some conversations in that household here in the next week or so that are going to be real conversations about, if this is what you want to do, how's it all going to work for the family. I think that'll be interesting to see. Jamie French, look, we always talked about who's going to step up and be Texas's competition. It's Miami. I mean, it's definitely Miami. It was Tennessee before those last visit weekends where he went to LSU and Miami. But this is a Texas-Miami decision, barring something major changing on August 30th, his mom's birthday. I think there's continues to be optimism in Austin, but with these things, Miami has proven that they can certainly compete in these level recruitments, and that's what I expect to happen. Going on here, there's a couple of others from recruiting. Justin asked, how do we actually feel about Jonah Williams? I think there is some unpredictability to that because of what I said. I think there's going to be some real discussions in this family now that life for Jonah's kind of slowed down. Summer baseball's over. High school has started. The football season has started. Practice down at Galveston Ball. So there's the travel part of this is over. So I think they're going to get into some real discussions here in the next week, probably starting this weekend. Let's see. Okay, David Keith Williams has this one. Today is Friday, 3 weeks from first game. DJ Sanders recently committed to Texas A&M. So what's the most recent news on the most important position UT is recruiting D tackle and nose tackle? I think the interesting thing there will be two-part. Texas is going to continue to recruit Myron Charles through the whistle. Nothing's going to change. Does a Brandon Brown still have contact with Texas? Yeah. Will it go anywhere? We don't know. I would say probably not. But there's always communication. These kids very rarely cut off communication between staff, even after they committed somewhere else. That's just par for the course. Does it go anywhere? We'll see. If Texans get Myron Charles back on campus for a game this year, then I think if that happens, then we're going to have a lot to talk about. But that's got to happen first. I think Texas will make a run at Chase Sims out of Richmond Randall. He's committed to A&M. Can you flip somebody committed to A&M? I don't know. Chase Sims really liked Texas at the beginning of this process. And I'll continue. Adari Norris, I'm sure we'll get another look his senior year. But I really think to remember this about D-line recruiting. Kenny Baker got to Texas late. So he didn't have all the in-person evaluations of the 2025 D linemen in this class, especially in the Southeast region. So will a couple offers happen this season? Guys committed elsewhere that they really like that maybe are under-recruited a little bit. That could potentially happen, but they're going to have the fit the size requirement that Texas is looking for, that SEC size guy. So that'll be – I think that will be in play as well. Mike Bass asks again, Jonah Williams, he's a popular guy here. We're in the top two. We just talked about that. If Jonah doesn't stay close to home, he'll be the first in his family that did not. From a recruiting perspective, I thought this was interesting. Casey, didn't a DFW coach say that Simmons is the best pass rusher out of DFW since Myles Garrett? Somebody have to bring up that quote, but I can tell you for me, absolutely. That is the case. LL, Jerry, has Texas expressed any interest in wide receiver Jerome Miles? Not a name we've heard on wide receiver recruiting. I think with Khalil Lockett in the boat now, obviously Texas wants Jamie French. If Texas beats out Miami for Jamie French, then the third receiver in the class will be a speed receiver. Bottom line, going to be a speed receiver as that third receiver. That question is, could they take four? If a guy like Dalen McCutcheon just picked up the phone and called Texas and say, man, I've thought about this. We'll see what happens on something like that. Mike Bass asks, any news on Madden Faramo? Think that's still an position as well as D tackle. Texas has two linebackers in the class. I think Elijah Bo Barnes is a stud. I'm going to go see him next week. I'll be in Dallas hitting schools next week. I'm going to go see Elijah for a practice next week, check in on him. By the way, unbelievable culture, team fit in Austin with what Sark's building. Jonathan Cunningham, a lot of upside. I'm not going to say – look, I was, for those on this chat that have been with us, I've been very high on Ty Anthony Smith for a long time. I'm not going to say Jonathan Cunningham, I'm as high on him as a player because I want to see the senior stuff first. But frame-wise, they're very, very similar prospects. Ty Anthony Smith has gained, 22, 24 pounds since arriving in Austin in January. Jonathan Cunningham has a very similar frame. Now, Ty Anthony Smith played all over the place in high school. He had a high football intelligence about him. Same things that we talk about with Cedric Baxter. Played running back, played wide receiver, played Wildcat quarterback, linebacker, played off the edge, played safety early in his career. So he could play about anywhere because he had the football intelligence that the Jasper staff could do whatever with, and he could get it done. And he understood it. Jonathan Cunningham is more of a pure linebacker that's played some safety, but frame-wise, they're very similar. Madden Faramo, Notre Dame, Texas battle. I've said the longer it goes on, the better it is for Texas, and I do believe that because if he hadn't taken the Texas visit, he'd have already been committed to Notre Dame. So Texas has obviously dramatically slowed down the process for Faramo. Could he decide in August? Could it be September? This one's kind of gone back and forth. At one point, maybe I need time into October, go to these schools for games. But is it going to be August or September? I think that's more likely right now, but we'll see what Madden Faramo actually does. Aiden Anding's out there from a defensive back perspective. We'll see. He wants to decide before his first game of senior season. LSU took another safety this week, but Aiden Anding's a corner. So LSU's telling DJ Pickett he can be a corner. I'm not sure He's the 5-star at Zephyr Hills in Florida. He's a stud talent, by the way. I'm not sure if he's a corner long-term or not, but LSU's got 2 safeties in the class. DJ Pickett's the 3rd DB in the class. He is committed as a corner. Aiden Anning, I think Arkansas has done a really good job. Terry Joseph, Blake Gideon continue to do a good job in that recruitment as well. So I'm sure there's some other questions. Anything you got, just ask it and we'll get to it.
I got a couple more for you, Jerry, real quick. Well, do you think Riley Pettijohn, Texas gets Riley Pettijohn on campus for a game this year?
I do know that Texas is going to continue to recruit Riley Pettijohn, so we'll see if that happens.
And then there was one other one I wanted to ask you before we move on, and then we'll come back, of course. Garrett Smith says, what's the word on Javion Hilson, or are we done at edge?
Texas is extremely pleased with Lance Jackson and Smith Orogbo. If Hayden Lowe or Javion Hilson made a call, I think it might be hard to say no, but that gets into a numbers game where they're at with the class. But Lance Jackson, Smith Orogbo, Texas feels like they have 2 of the very best edges in the country. And I know Bobby agrees.
I do. And I think they're different.
Yes.
That's even the bigger piece. I mean, I think Lance Jackson's more the strong side defensive end, and Smith Orogbo is that pass rushing type. Look, I don't know. After watching Colin Simmons, Zena Umeozulu, and Colton Vosick in the last 2 weeks, I'm not sure anybody in the country has 3 better young edges as a group. And I'm serious about it. And that includes the Georges of the world. Texas has some nice young edges.
To your point, Lance Jackson and Smith coming behind them.
Yes.
So would you take a 3rd edge in this class, or would you just stock up in 2026?
I'll tell you right now, if he can get after the passer, yes.
Yes.
And that's what I think they think Hilson might be. So I don't know that they would go with a strong side defensive end here unless he's a little bit of a freak. But if the guy can get after the passer, I still think you go after pass rushers these days, Jerry.
Yeah.
Well, before we move on, I need to let folks out there know about HelloFresh. And with HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. You can skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. We all know home-cooked meals are so much better for you, but you don't always have time to do that. With HelloFresh handling all the meal planning, shopping, and most of the prep, it's easier than ever to get dinner on the table quick and painless. And that's what I love about it. I've told y'all all week, I'm a busy guy. School has started. Sports are going on. I mean, I am all over the place, so I don't always have time to sit around and cook. That's why HelloFresh lets you easily customize your delivery from week to week. You get to tailor everything to your schedule by adjusting your delivery options. And HelloFresh has a phenomenal deal for our listeners. Breakfast is another meal I don't always have time for. I'm sure a lot of you guys don't either, but they have you covered. You get free breakfast for life by going to HelloFresh.com/free-on-Texas. You get 1 free breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life just by going to HelloFresh.com/free-on-Texas. And that's HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. And then, Bobby, why don't you tell folks out there about Babbel and how you're
spending? Babbel's the extremely popular language learning app. 1 in 5 Americans have learn a new language on their bucket list. If that's you, make 2024 the year you finally check it off that list. Babbel, the science-backed language learning app that actually works with more than 16 million people having used it. Don't pay hundreds of dollars for private tutors or waste hours on apps that don't really help you speak the language. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are handcrafted by over 200 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. I've told you guys that I'm learning Spanish. It is going well, very well at this point, in my opinion. I'm basically doing 5 to 10-minute or 15-minute lessons a day before either at night or early in the morning. If I get a chance, I do 2 a day. Here's a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off a Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/on-Texas. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/on-Texas. Spelled BABBEL.com/on-Texas. rules and restrictions may apply.
Thank you, Bobby.
Hey, by the way, I wanted to say I was a little late to the game, but finally got this. And I'm starting to dig into it a little bit. Looking for some high school guys to some new high school guys to watch on Huddle that are some younger kids.
There you go.
We go through every team. I go through every team in Dave Campbell's on the high school level, and I can't watch all the huddles. There's 1,400 schools, and some of those schools aren't going to have players, but the state of Texas is very, very talented with young football players. That I'll say. Population continues to grow. People are moving into the state. The state of Texas is extremely talented. Depth in these classes is getting even better than it has been in recent years.
Man, it's hard to believe that high school football is what
it's here.
Yeah,
it's here. I've been to 2 practices this week. Scrimmages start next week. I mean, it's here. I'm going to be in Dallas next week. Can't wait to go see some of the guys either committed to Texas or Texas targets. It's going to be it's here. It's a fun week, fun time.
You know how good it is, Jerry, to walk out onto a football field and there's guys going at it a little bit in football up at DKR and Denny's Fields and all that stuff. We're like I said when we started, it's 22 days away. By the way, somebody mentioned in the chat that I don't have a sense of history because I didn't say Bobby Lane. I didn't say Bobby Lane wasn't the best to ever wear 22 at the University of Texas. I said my favorite because I actually didn't see Bobby Lane. My favorite, Selvin Young. So that's more my age group. Now, of course, we also mentioned earlier that number 22 is one of several numbers retired at the University of Texas because of Bobby Lane and what he did not only at the University of Texas, but on into what was then, I guess it was the NFL, but before the merger of the AFL NFL.
We got a lot of questions to get to, and then also want to talk about the schedule as well. But first, let's knock out a few of these super chats. UT Boy, thank you, UT Boy, for the super chat. We appreciate it as always. He says, Bobby, I'm excited for the season and tailgating. Jerry Hamilton and Blake, y'all are awesome. Hook 'em family.
Can't wait for tailgating, man. That's part of it too.
Hey, UT Boy, are you bringing the fish? You catch one every morning.
You get that stringer filled up and get them filleted and bring them on out. Jimmy Trevino, thank you, Jimmy. He says, we're so back. Texas Pecan Coffee. Blue with 1,450 all-purpose yards.
Again, that would be a heck of a season. I go back to Jahmyr Gibbs, who a lot of people want to compare Jaden Blue to, and I'm certainly not, by the way. Style of runner, maybe. But Jahmyr Gibbs had 926 rushing, 444 receiving in his 1 year at Alabama. So 1,370-ish.
He was also handicapped by having Bill O'Brien.
Right.
So, I think I'm a big Jaden Blue fan from the standpoint of he has a strength. And this is something that Sark talked about yesterday is he realizes and recognizes that Cedric Baxter changes his offense.
Yes.
He agreed with that. There was no, oh, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, any of that stuff. He's like, look, we got to lean in to what our guys can do, and we got to find out what they can do great and lean into that. So Jaden Blue can run. That's what he does great. Get him in space and find a way he can use his speed to his advantage in one-on-one matchups on the edge, against linebackers, et cetera. Jerry mentioned yesterday one of the problems with losing Cedric Baxter is you can't really line Jaden Blue up in the slot as much anymore if you're going to still give him a two-back look and get a linebacker on him. So there are some issues there, but that's what he wants to also see. I think he knows more of what Trey Wisner and Jaden Blue can do best. He needs to see what Jarrett Gibson and Christian Clark can do best, and see if they're mentally ready. When I was talking earlier about the practice in the scrimmage tomorrow at 9, it's going to be at 9:45, by the way. The idea is that he wants to see if they're ready mentally and what they do best in a live setting. What do those two guys do best? So I can start getting my head around it as a play caller and then putting it out on the field. They're not there. Sark's very clear. Until he sees them scrimmage, he's got ideas of what they can do, but he wants to see it in play. He really does. It's one of the things I like about Steve Sarkisian. He didn't baby that answer yesterday. He came out and said, yeah, but we got to lean into what we do. I've had passing teams. I've had run first teams. He said, look, in 2022, we were run. It wasn't, there was, last year we were more balanced. I can do both and I will do both, but I'm going to lean into what we do best. So we got to figure out what all these guys can do before we make those decisions. Did I think something else if I had Cedric Baxter? Of course. It wasn't, it's not, I was encouraged by what I heard from Sark yesterday. I think that's a good way to put it for me, because it wasn't it wasn't the sky is falling, and it also wasn't head in the sand. Right. So it wasn't like this, the head coach is just bound and determined to make it this way or that way. He wants to see what he has, and then let's go play ball. So I think, look,
one of the things that Kyle Flood said in his press conference struck me with the Baxter injury. Somebody asked him about Jordan Whittington. How do you replace Jordan Whittington? He said you can replace the production, but you can't replace the player. And so, you can replace production. I mean, look, people are saying, well, Cedric Baxter, how good was he really? Well, the biggest jump guys make is first year to second year in college football. So if he was a freshman, a good player last year, had some nagging injuries, if he made that big jump, which a lot of these guys do year two, then he becomes that guy who was picked second, third team all SEC running back by the media. So, and the guy that Nick Saban said was the best running back he played against last year. I don't think Nick Saban's had the most explosive guy, the best player, the best running back, the fastest guy. Those guys look at this stuff a little differently. Football intelligence off the charts means I can do anything I want with my offense with this guy, and I know the defense knows that too. So that's the thing is kind of, I think you're going to see more of a college offense, so to speak, from Texas this year, which I think the pieces are there to be really high end at that. It's just going to be a different look than what the staff had envisioned a week ago. I want to say this too, Blake. Yeah, Living Rent Free asked a recruiting question. Devin Williams, Auburn commitment from Buford, said he was coming to a game this fall. Do you think we'll flip him? I don't know if Texas will go that direction. I was not saying he's not a good player, but 5'9", 155, 160. I think Texas is looking for bigger guys at corner.
We got some more supers to knock out here, and let's see here. Clay K, Clay K. Thank you, Clay. He says, would missing out on Michael Fasusi be like missing out on Kelvin Banks?
Ask me that midway through senior season.
That's a great answer.
Because Kelvin Banks' physicality as an offensive lineman in the run game, he was always tremendous in pass pro. Kenny Harrison, lifetime Longhorn, head coach at Summer Creek, really good offensive coach. They did a great job with Kelvin. His senior year, his physicality in the run game. I mean, remember, you can go back and look at the huddle. One poor kid. I hope he's okay. But it didn't stick. Still not sticking with him. I mean, that was one of the most powerful pull hits you'll ever see in high school football. But Kelvin Banks became such a much more physical football player as a senior in high school than he was. Not that he wasn't physical, but he just took it up so many notches. With Michael Fasusi, it's different. I think with Fasusi, it's maybe more of that consistent focus. He's a younger football player. He moved to the States, and I think he's going to commit on the day his family moved to the States. He's a younger football player, so I think the younger guys have to learn how to lock in and really focus consistently. And I think that's a big part of his development. I don't necessarily think Fasusi is I would rank him up there with Banks. I think Fasusi is a really good prospect. for sure. I'm not sure I'd put him up there with Banks. It just in my eyes, but I want to see first half of senior season.
I love Jerry. I love that you said that because it tells people that the senior seasons are important.
Very.
And these guys, the best players will continue to get better as seniors in high school. They won't plateau, right? And a lot of these guys that are ranked really highly right now, in my opinion, they plateau as seniors, and that means they're not really 5 stars long term.
Yeah.
The ones that that's
look in the state of Texas. Let's talk about this. In the state of Texas, if Fasusi doesn't continue to ascend and Lamont Rogers ascends, Lamont Rogers is more physically gifted. So this stuff has to play out. It's not done deals who the best guy. Now, Kelvin Banks was he just was so strong here at a young age, I think, from that football intelligence, the things we talk about with some guys that I don't think maybe we talk about enough. But Fasusi's a young football player, really young. Smith Orogbo, young football player. So what will he be as he develops and gains more football intelligence and experience? Kelvin Banks' strength, to me, outside of all the things you see, is he has very high level of football intelligence about him. But these guys have to develop. I'm telling you right now, if Fasusi doesn't ascend, if he starts to level out at all, Lamont Rogers can go right by him over time. It's not clear cut with these guys. There's some. There's not a. I will say this: Michael Fasusi, very good player. He's not Laramie Tunzel. Yeah, I saw Laramie Tunzel in high school. I was like, this guy is, unless he has major injury, done deal. Fasusi's younger in football. He's got a development curve in front of him. He's got a lot of talent, but he's got to go get there.
Then our next super chat comes from Trace Little. Thank you, Trace. He says, Gunner reminds me of a little bit like Jason Witten and finding the soft spots in coverage during the spring game.
He's a heady player for sure. Jason Witten, look, I think Jason Witten's a great athlete. I don't know if Gunner is that level athlete. But Gunner is a heady football player, just like Jason Witten was, in my opinion. So I can understand where you're going with that. By the way, I mean, Jason Witten back in the day was, I think, the top rated tight end in the country coming out of high school. So Gunner has been a developmental project that has actually developed. We talked about this yesterday with David Benda, as well as Baron Sorrell. Those 3 guys, not highly recruited. I mean, they were recruited. Don't get me wrong. They weren't just total projects or something, but they weren't highly recruited. And all 3 of them set to make a difference for the Longhorns this year. That's part of what you mix in the elite players, the disruptors, and the playmakers with guys that have been developed over time, and all of a sudden you have a good football team. That's where this is headed right now.
Hey, one thing, forgive me if I'm missing somebody, because I could be. If Gunnar Helm ends up on an NFL roster, does that mean Texas is going 2 for 2 in the state of Colorado at tight end, Bo Scaife and Gunnar Helm? Has there been anybody in between? So at tight end.
Texas had a good run in Colorado with not only Bo Scaife, but Casey Studdard, as well as Tillman Holloway, an offensive lineman from up there. I was going to say one of the most underrated Longhorns of all time, in my opinion, is Lamar Houston.
No doubt.
Really a tremendous player. I texted with him the other day. He's now another guy that's done well for himself after football. He's a business owner, and I think he's either in Colorado now or Phoenix. I can't remember. But my point being, Colorado's been kind to Texas through the years from a recruiting perspective as well.
Well, Jerry, do you hear that sound?
You
know what that means.
Hey, guys, I always hear that sound. So this is Reed, because I've taken care of my business. All right, here we go. It's the Beard and Balls bundle. Fellas, do you want your grooming routine to be a one-and-done deal? Well, the days of using the same trimmer for your face and your private parts are over, thanks to our friends at Manscaped. Our very good friends, by the way. They've come up with the ultimate package to keep your hairs trimmed from 12 to 6, introducing the Beard and Balls bundle featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 and the Beard Hedger. Yes, a trimmer for the moneymaker and another for the boys downstairs. Get 20% off plus free shipping with code ONTEXAS, all caps, at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code ONTEXAS at manscaped.com. For the premium grooming experience, you got to trust Manscaped. Do what I do. Don't I look great? Maybe not, but I do use the product.
Oh, man.
Yes, and Josie, I 100% agree. We can't wait for Halloween in October.
Halloween.
All right. Well, we're going to get back to some more questions here, some more super chats. And James Williams, thank you, James. He says, with Blue being the number one guy, I feel like this gives Texas the best chance to go 3 years with the number one running back off the board for the NFL.
Ooh.
Blue was the number one running back out of high school before he set out his senior season.
Yeah, look, last year wasn't a high-end running back draft class. That's why Jonathan Brooks, even as tremendous of a season as he had, went number one after tearing his ACL, first back taken. The 25 running back draft is extremely deep. There are some really, really talented running backs in this class. So that may be a tall order. If Jaden Blue did that, that would be an ultimate hat tip. But you got 2 at Ohio State, you got 2 at Penn State. There's a number of really good running backs around the country that are going to be draft eligible in 25. That would be a tall order. There's a lot now.
If it happens, it would signify a change in the NFL and what they would go for early at running back. Because he is, y'all mentioned, Jerry, you always mentioned him akin to Jahmyr Gibbs, who is a good running back, but really a huge threat out of the backfield, right? And that is Jaden Blue's big piece of the puzzle. It would change what that means. Now, frankly, Bijan Robinson's a great threat out of the backfield too. And so he was the first one to go. I'm not so sure that there's not something to that. Like the NFL is maybe going for more receivers as running backs first, the guys that can do both really, really elite at an elite level. I don't know. And I think it's fair. I don't think that Jaden Blue is the best running back as a runner of the football in college football. Is Jaden Blue the best receiving running back in college football?
We'll see this year.
I could buy that, actually. I could buy that.
Here's your list of running backs that are draft eligible to be back in college football this year. Okay. Ollie Gordon, 1,730 yards last year. You guys know about him. Taj Brooks, Texas Tech, 1,540 yards last year. Marion Hampton, North Carolina, big-time player, 1,500 yards last year. Austin Janty from Boise State's a guy that's on some first-round mocks, 1,350 yards last year. Jade Knott from Cal, really good player nobody talks about because nobody watches Cal anymore, 1,300 yards last year. I mean, and I haven't even got to the Ohio State guys. Damian Martinez from Oregon State will have a big year at Miami this year. He had 1,200-yard rusher last year. Quinshon Judkins, obviously out of Ohio State. I mean, I'm just going down this list, guys. This is a 2025 running back draft is going to be, and that's neither Penn State guy because they split a lot of carries. Singleton and Katron Allen, who was a hammer coming out of IMG. That's a really good running back draft in 25, guys. There's a lot of really good players that have put up a lot of numbers in college football coming back this year.
All right, we got this super chat from Clay K. I want to thank you, Clay. Wow. Thanks for the big super chat. He says, thanks for all you guys do. You're truly the best in the business and the best part of my morning every day. Hook 'em.
Thanks, Clay. We appreciate it. Hey, we're closing in on 56,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. So we appreciate you guys very, very much. We really do. We're going to blow it out this year. We've got some really big plans for football season. We're adding a couple more folks to the roster for On Texas Football, just for you guys, especially on game day. So I hope you guys enjoy what we have in store for you. It is just the start here of what we're doing, and appreciate y'all very, very much.
And our next super chat comes from UT Boy. Thank you again, UT Boy. And he says, I need a DeAndre Moore update.
Well, I mean, DeAndre is still sticking with the starters, okay, at slot. That was as of Tuesday. What they've been doing on Tuesday in pads and then Thursday in pads is they've started rotating in all 6 receivers, the top 6 that we all talked about preseason. You know, we said, oh, well, is Parker Livingstone going to be mixed in there? Not really. I mean, Parker's running third team. So they've got Moore, Cook, Wingo, Bond, and Bolden. And I'm missing somebody else. Anyways, y'all know the 6. I'm not trying to push it any which way. But what they've started doing and what Sark has started doing is mixing and matching and just playing them all. Not just platooning. It's not just first string you get in there, second string you get in there. He's mixing and matching the receivers. He and Chris Jackson are right now at various spots. And I think that's really key because I think that's going to allow them to have some consistency and chemistry on the field, no matter who the unit is. And I think it also means Sark is absolutely convinced that he needs to get everybody more touches this year. Or not everybody more touches, but spread out the touches a little bit this year. I also will say that DeAndre Moore, as far as I know, for every practice I've been to at least, he's been the first player on the field, just the regular player, right? I'm not talking about the specialists like Bert Auburn and Michael Kern and Ian Ratliff and those guys, but the first player on the field every single practice. He is trying like hell to emulate Jordan Whittington from a year ago. And that's straight for some people inside the building that told me that. And I think that they're really, for DeAndre Moore, I'm not sure there's a better person he could emulate than that in that regard.
And one other one from UT Boy, and I know we talked about it a second ago, but we've had a few people join since then. Obviously, Madden for Rainbow, Jerry, take it away. And also, we got people asking about Fasusi again. So just very quickly on both of those.
Yeah, Notre Dame, Texas battling out for Faramo. I'll continue to say this. The one thing to know right now is he's working through decision timelines and making a decision is he would have already been committed to Notre Dame if he didn't take the Texas official visit. That was going to be a done deal. So Texas did a great job with the visit. Johnny Nansen, who had him on campus before in the spring and it never got out. That still happens in our business. That was the first visit for his family for the official visit, though, I believe. So Texas has done a really good job there. They've made him and his family have to really think about this decision. That's good recruiting, just like Miami's doing with Jamie French right now. That's good recruiting. You make these decisions as difficult as possible. And Texas, I think the longer it plays out, the better it is for Texas, the farther he gets away from being a heavy Notre Dame lean. But we'll see what happens. I mean, Notre Dame was a big leader for a while, and there's some things working in their favor. We'll see what happens long term. On Fasusi, look, I think Texas and OU are the two there. I'm not going to say A&M's totally out of it. I'm not going to be that dumb. I've been in the business too long. Texas and Oklahoma are the top two in there, and I think Oklahoma coming out of June visits was trending a little bit. We'll see if Texas can fight back enough by August 21st, 22nd. I think 22nd is when he'll decide. He's also talked about the 21st, but we'll see. I'll know maybe a little bit more on that next week as we get closer, if things are shifting or trending a little bit.
And 2 more super chats, I believe. We'll start with this one from It's Lep. Thank you. And he says, I listened to Trey Wisner on 3rd and Longhorn. What an incredible kid, a great leader. He will be ready.
For sure.
I love Trey, so you're not going to get me say anything bad. Hey, by the way, I love Third and Longhorn. Nick Shuley's a friend of mine. And obviously Rod is over there helping them out as well as some other Longhorns. Just a good channel. There is good stuff out there. Trey Wisner in particular, though, Jerry, I think the piece that I get at is what Sark said yesterday to the group of us. He's just physical for his size, surprisingly physical. He called Trey Wisner, quote, a baller. Yeah. I mean, is there for an undersized guy, is there a better term a coach can use than that for a player? It just means he does everything you want and has that mentality that you want.
But look, there's some similarities. The running backs that also play some safety. Cedric Baxter, sophomore year, as a high school player, was a safety and running back before, because they had a D1 running back ahead that was also there at the school he was at. So then he became a full-time running back. So this was his freshman year at Edgewater. But those guys who play some safety and running back tend to be more physical players. But yeah, baller is the term you want to hear, especially if you're Derek Wisner on the chat.
Is that Trey's uncle? Is that who that is? I think we determine that was his uncle. Yeah. I'm a big Trey Wisner fan because I like slashers. And that's his running style. And it reminds me a little, I know the guy that people are going to say, oh, you're calling him this person. He runs a little bit like Jamal Charles. That's who he runs like, in my opinion. So, Jamal's was an extremely successful running back, not only at Texas, but also in the NFL. So the best thing about Wisner, though, this offseason, Jerry, and you and I noticed it in the first practice, an extra 5 to 10 pounds of nothing but muscle, well-proportioned muscle this offseason.
Yeah, he was built.
He's going to look different to people when they. Yeah,
he was built more like a wiry, strong wide receiver coming out of high school than he was a guy you think we're going to hand the ball to in the SEC. But he has added really good weight. He's always going to be more of that more streamlined, wiry, strong frame versus the rocked up Jarrett Gibson's, Christian Clarks of the world. They have different frames. That's why none of these guys are just plug and play, what we've talked about. They're all different. But Trey Wisner is definitely stronger. Derek Wisner may be able to tell some numbers, but he's definitely a stronger guy. It's very noticeable in his upper body with his development to me.
And Casey with the super chat says the tartar sauce fun for UT boys tailgate fish fry. Here you go, UT boy. The pressure is on now. You better get to catching them fish.
I gotta ask you, do y'all go with tartar sauce? This is just a crazy question. Do you go with tartar sauce, or do y'all go with like cocktail sauce, or just straight ketchup with catfish?
Cocktail or ketchup? Tartar sauce is terrible. Terrible. What about you, Jerry?
Jerry's a mayonnaise guy. Come on.
I got a question. I'll eat a steak instead. Let's see. Not that I don't eat some fish, but there was a question okay. Let's see. Where was it? Okay. Todd Lacey asked this question. I want us to bring up the Texas schedule, Blake, because I want to get into a little discussion too here on football. Does your forecast win total change at all with Baxter being out? Look, I'm the same I was. I start the year 10-2, see what happens at Michigan, then you kind of adjust. With the understanding Texas has a more difficult schedule than last year. I just don't think there's any doubt. It's a different conference. And just look at the schedule. It's not that hard to say the difference there. What I think is interesting is I wrote something on OnTexasFootball.com looking at, Bobby, who Texas plays. And I know it's early, but we love these discussions. Who Texas plays the week before these teams come to Austin, or Texas goes on the road and plays these guys. And I think it's very interesting to look at. So if you just give a rundown here. So Colorado State, obviously that's first game of the season. Michigan hosts Fresno State on the 31st, who was a 9-4 team that beat Purdue and won at Purdue and at Arizona State last year. So a competent opponent out of the gate for Michigan. Good look for the Texas staff and Texas fans at this new look Michigan team. They're playing a decent team right out of the gate. UTSA, the week before Texas, plays what I'm calling is the next head coach at Baylor Bowl. They play Texas State. That's Jeff Traylor versus G.J. Kinney. That's a little rivalry game down there before UTSA comes to Austin. ULM Monroe's off the week before Texas. They don't have another Power 4 opponent. This will be Texas is their first Power 4 opponent. They won't play another one until Auburn in mid-November. Mississippi State, they host Florida the week before they come to Austin. So that's back-to-back physical games for them because Florida will be a physical football team, especially early in the season. Oklahoma and Texas are both off before the Red River Showdown. That's great for both teams, but really good for Oklahoma because they play Tennessee and at Auburn, their first two SEC games. Then you get into Georgia. Obviously, Georgia hosts Mississippi State before Texas. But Georgia, what's interesting about Georgia, that's a 4-game stretch for them that's actually physical, kind of grueling football games. They're at Alabama. They host Auburn. Then they host Mississippi State before Texas. So 4 games back-to-back. No, back-to-back. No off weeks. Then Texas, the 4th game there after at Alabama and Auburn, those back-to-back weeks, and the Mississippi State mixed in there. Vanderbilt plays Ball State the week before Texas. Florida, the Florida-Texas game is the week after the world's largest cocktail party in Jacksonville. We don't know what Florida will be like by the time they come to Austin, but Florida plays a very physical Georgia team the week before they come to Austin, so they're going to be a little beat up and bruised. Arkansas has an off week before Texas, which is very interesting, right? Almost A&M head coach Mark Stoops in Kentucky, they travel to Texas the week after playing Murray State, so that sets up well. A&M plays at Auburn the week before Texas. So when we dig into these schedules a little bit more, again, it's pretty favorable for Texas. They got a really good schedule to navigate this year. It's a tough schedule, tougher than last year, I should say. Not the toughest in the SEC, but it's a schedule that continues to line up really well for the Horns.
Stuff. Before we move on to these last couple of questions, guys, Bobby, can you tell folks out there how they can escape the insurance trap?
Yeah, I can, Blake. Our friends over at BKCW Business Insurance help you escape the insurance trap by taking your business and doing a 5-step process to identify your business's weak spots with their insurance plan, designing a plan around it, and then executing and monitoring your situation throughout the year so that you can lower your insurance costs and effectively manage your company's risks and employee benefits. Operating out of their headquarters in Austin and owned by UT grad, BKCW has risk consultants that specialize in many different industries, from construction and transportation companies to nonprofits, school districts, restaurants, etc. So you'll get matched up with someone who knows your risks and can help you escape the insurance trap. Get started with a free risk assessment at bkcw.com or send an email to info@bkcw.com to get started and get the support for you and your business that you deserve.
All right, we got a couple of super chats we need to knock out before we get out of here. This first one from UT Boy once again. Thank you, UT Boy. He says, shout out to the entire Weisner family. Hook 'em from all of us. So thank you for that. And then Freelance Society, this one got me pumped because I got to looking at it.
Oh, yeah.
He says, what Texas 6A school should I keep an eye on this season? So, Jerry, I'm going to let you answer that, but check this out. This is opening week in Class 6A. Number 5, Westlake versus number 15, Prosper. Number 3, North Shore versus number 2, South Oak Cliff. Of course, South Oak Cliff is in 5A. But number 11, Katy versus number 21, Dickinson. Number 6, Summer Creek versus number 19, Shadow Creek. Number 16, Klein Collins versus number 4, College Station. And number 9, Atascocita versus number 23, Houston Lamar. All those huge 6A matchups in the opening week of high school football.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having some of this talk mixed in. So let's say this. Let's go by Dave Campbell's 6A rankings. DeSoto 1, Duncanville 2. I'd probably flip those. Sorry, Claude Mathis. North Shore 3. They got. We'll see. The quarterback coming back's big. Westlake 4. North Crowley 5. The most talented program in the state. Nobody's talking about. Duncanville did beat them up in the state semifinal game, but North Crowley has the majority of those guys back. They're going to be a tough out. Summer Creek, obviously Kenny Harrison does a great job every season there. You have Southlake, number 7, who, interesting, the running back, Riley Wormley, who transferred in. UIL made him sit out. He stayed at Southlake. So he will be there this year. And what their young quarterbacks look like will be interesting. Lake Travis, Atascocita is going to be very fast. Are they going to be as good up front? Atascocita's had a run of offensive linemen that have been tremendous players. Big bodies, large humans. What are they going to look like up front this year will be, I think, a key for Atascocita. Cibolo Steel, when I went by Steel last season, they have a lot. They're kind of a hidden talent program right now. They got a lot of press when Malcolm Brown, some of those guys came through, and they had some really good teams. Maybe it hadn't been quite as talented, but I'm telling you, they got a D1 level quarterback, multiple D1 level skill kids, 2 or 3 defensive line guys who will play D1 at some level. Cibolo Steel is going to be a tough out for people. Katie's down with what they have been. Westfield's always going to have some talent. Ridge Point out of the Houston area is one of the sleepers because they're a very talented program. But there's some people in this chat that know that Sienna neighborhood, that's where all the pro athletes that live in that area live down there. TJ Ford, Sean Rogers, a lot of their kids go to Ridge Point. And Duquay Kalu's kid went to Ridge Point. Ridge Point has a lot of talent in that program. And I think they're always going to. But you mentioned Prosper. Prosper may have the best offensive line in the state, guys. They got 4 Power 4 guys starting on the offensive line, and one 2026 that Texas offered. So 6A is going to be big time this year as usual. Even though Duncanville lost January and Simmons and a number of secondary guys that are really good players, Boy Keelan Russell, DeCorian Moore, the talent in that program, it's going to be, and the fact that DeSoto waxed them a little bit last year, I'm going with Duncanville.
But hey, Blake, Westlake Prosper, is that at Westlake or at Prosper? Or is it one of those games somewhere else that's a neutral site? See that?
Me find out.
And then also Katie Dickinson. Do you know, that's an interesting one. Like, is that a home and away situation, 2 years that they do back to back?
Let me see. I'm looking up that Westlake. Looks like they are going to be hosting Prosper on that one. And then the other one was Katie that you asked for.
Yeah, Katie Dickinson.
That one is going to be at Dickinson.
Oh. Gary Joseph's trying to get down, or Coach Joseph's trying to get down there and get his troops ready for district play with that one, Jerry.
Yeah.
That's what's happening there. He wants a little adversity and play through it with athletics against some really good athletes at Dickinson.
Well, once they get done with that game, they turn right around and play number 9 at Atascocita the following. So, yeah.
Hey, by the way, we had a question earlier or a comment earlier in the chat about the Texas edges and the Oklahoma quarterback, Jackson Arnold. I want to say this again. Jackson Arnold better perform well, because Michael Hawkins will give Oklahoma dimension to that point that they only one guy on that roster can give them, and that's Michael Hawkins. He's a pretty talented freshman quarterback for Oklahoma. We'll see if they caught lightning in a bottle being Michael Hawkins' son, but he's getting some pretty good reviews. Continues to.
All right, guys. That, I think, is all of our super chats here. I'm going to double check on that. Yep, it is. So that will do it for today's show. We want to thank BKCW along with HelloFresh, Babbel, and Manscaped for sponsoring. It's hard to believe, but 22 days away from kickoff. First fall scrimmage, of course, takes place tomorrow morning at 9:45. Be sure to stay tuned to On Texas Football and OnTexasFootball.com. There's not a better time than now to become a member. So come join us over there. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Ring the bell so you don't miss anything. You won't miss any time we go live or any time that we post the video. And between those two avenues, you should be covered with Longhorns.
We have one more super chat.
Did it just come in? Go ahead and read it for me, Jerry. Here, because it's for you.
For Weisner family, thank you. Replenish the jerky fund. High school ball is right around the corner. Yes, it is. Scrimmages start Scrimmages start next week in high school football in Texas.
That's awesome. All right. Well, for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you on Monday morning.